Coming up on this Friday edition of Newsline at noon, President Park Geun-hye expresses her wish for a trilateral summit with China and Japan. The talks have been stalled for 2.5 years amid deep differences over territorial and historical issues. With its stock market debut, Samsung SDS becomes Korea's 5th biggest company in terms of market capitalization, with shares trading more than 80% higher than the offering price. Plus, concerns are growing about the battery life of the Philae lander after its bumpy landing on a comet, but scientists say it's perfectly operational, for now at least. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
It's New Friday, November 14th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this lunchtime, President Park Geun-hye has touched down in Australia for this year's G20 summit in Brisbane. Prior to her stop down under, the Korean leader was in Myanmar for a couple of regional forums.
Right, and it was at the ASEAN Plus 3 meeting on Thursday where President Park expressed hopes of holding a trilateral summit with China and Japan. And Korea's presidential office says the three nations are working towards holding the meeting sometime around the end of December. Choi-san reports.
At an annual meeting with the leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, China and Japan, hosted by Myanmar this year, President Park Geun-hye has openly expressed hopes to meet her Chinese and Japanese counterparts. This comes as historical and territorial differences in Northeast Asia have led tensions to rise in the region. The last time the three countries' leaders met was in 2012. A slight gaining of diplomatic momentum among the three nations was witnessed at the APEC summit in Beijing earlier this week, when President Park talked about a tripartite foreign ministers meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Park also had a brief encounter with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, where the two leaders agreed to encourage officials involved in high-level talks to make progress in resolving Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. The leaders of China and Japan also met on the sidelines of that global forum. It, however, remains to be seen how the latest rounds of diplomacy and reconciliatory gestures will work to thaw Korea's relations with Japan, as Seoul is adamant Tokyo must first take responsibility for its past wrongdoings. Crediting the ASEAN cooperation and trust building as a model for a Northeast Asia peace initiative, President Park also sought the ASEAN, China, and Japan support in encouraging North Korea to lay down its nuclear arms for the region's peace and stability. President Park has touched down in the Australian city of Brisbane, where she will join leaders of the group of 20 nations to seek an action plan to achieve collective economic growth of 2% above trend in 5 years. Choi-san, Arirang News, Brisbane.
Samsung SDS made its initial public offering on Korea's stock market today and snatched the 5th spot in terms of market cap right away. The company opened trade at nearly twice its offering price at around $345, but analysts expect share prices to go up further, some suggesting prices as high as around $450. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Samsung SDS, the group's IT services affiliate that specializes in system integration, doubled its initial public offering price, starting its first day trading at roughly $345. Although it's 10% lower on average than estimates made by 7 local securities firms, in one leap, the company has become the 5th largest company in Korea in terms of market capitalization. The hype surrounding the company's IPO reflects high expectations the Samsung affiliate will be increasingly utilized as the group undergoes structural changes since its chairman Eoh Jin-joo was hospitalized in May following a serious heart attack. The three heirs of the Eoh Jin-joo family fortune own a combined 19% stake in Samsung SDS. An Jae-min, an analyst for Seoul-based Kiwoom Securities Company, says the heirs are expected to sell off their shares in Samsung SDS to pay their inheritance taxes. The analyst asks the future of the company looks bright, mainly due to its distribution business, and expects the share price to rise well past $400 even after the hype dies down. Kim Jeong, Arirang News.
After major Korean companies like Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor reporting some disappointing third-quarter earnings, the outlook for the fourth quarter remains bleak as well. According to data compiled by market researcher FN Guy, the combined operating profit of 168 listed Korean companies in the fourth quarter is estimated at around $25 billion as of Thursday. That is down over 11% from an estimate from 3 months ago. The dimmer outlook comes as local companies are going through tough times with the weak yen, slowing Chinese and Eurozone economies, and sluggish domestic demand. The National Assembly's Foreign Affairs Committee has passed bills for free trade agreements with Australia and Canada, paving the way for the ratification of the pacts early next month. The ruling and opposition parties say they will ratify the trade agreements no later than December 2nd. The quell concerns the FTAs will negatively impact Korea's livestock sector. The ministers of Finance and Agriculture agreed to offer local livestock farmers cheap loans and advice on how to export their products.
Now, Korea is moving to shore up defense of its easternmost island of Dokdo. The military says it plans to hold a drill on and around the island later this month amid Japan's ongoing false territorial claims to that island. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The South Korean military is scheduled to conduct a defense drill aimed at deterring trespassers on its easternmost island of Dokdo later this month. A government source said Friday that the drill is scheduled to take place on November 24th, and the goal will be to repel non-military forces that approach the island via sea or air. The Korean Navy will employ 5 to 6 destroyers and convoys, as well as some patrol planes and fighter jets. The official says the Marine Corps will simultaneously conduct a landing exercise on Dokdo using a UH-60 helicopter. The exercise has been carried out twice a year since 1986, and the latest drill took place in May. Experts say the exercise is carried out to prevent Japanese forces from landing on the island. Japan claims that Dokdo is part of its territory, though it never established its sovereignty over the island. Seoul reclaimed sovereignty over its territory, including Dokdo and other islands around Korea, upon its independence from Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now back here on the Korean mainland, and the nation's transportation ministry is wrestling with the question of how to penalize the nation's second largest carrier, Asiana Airlines, for the fatal crash last year at an airport in San Francisco. Shin Se-min reports.
Whether it's a $2 million fine or a flight suspension, Asiana Airlines will be penalized for the fatal crash of one of its planes at San Francisco International Airport in July of last year. The Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport is currently deliberating the penalty for Korea's second largest airline. This is separate from the earlier penalty of $500,000 issued to the airline by U.S. federal transportation officials for failing to assist the families of the passengers on the flight. The crash left 3 passengers dead and over 180 injured. The focus in Korea is on whether the airline will be barred from operating the Incheon to San Francisco route, with the suspension lasting from as few as 45 days to 135 days, or whether it will be issued a fine, which could be more than $2 million. If a suspension is imposed, Asiana could stand to lose over $9 million in earnings per month, as well as further damage to its reputation. The National Transportation Safety Board in the U.S. had previously concluded that pilot error and an over-reliance on automated systems was to blame for the fatal crash. U.S. regulators said the Boeing 777 came in too low and too slow and blamed the trainee pilot, who they said lacked sufficient training and inadvertently shut off an automated speed control system that might have prevented the accident. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
After an epic 10-year journey through the darkest reaches of space, the final steps of the Rosetta mission haven't gone quite according to plan. Its probe managed to touch down on the comet, but it bounced twice and actually ended up landing on its side in the shadow of a crater wall. Now, scientists at the European Space Agency fear the probe's batteries could be about to go out, with no chance of popping out there with a spare. Jim Young-gil reports.
The Philae space probe that made history by touching down on a comet 500 million kilometers from Earth has achieved another remarkable first by sending back stunning images of the comet's surface. One of the photos released by the European Space Agency shows one of the lander's legs on the jagged, rocky surface of the comet. The agency thinks the lander could be resting on its side, possibly with one leg extended into open space, and concerns are rising about the probe's battery life. Philae appears to be sitting under the shadow of a huge crater wall, so scientists may have a hard time recharging its solar batteries. Scientists had been hoping for 6 to 7 hours of sunlight to charge the batteries, but it looks like Philae will only get a maximum of 2 hours of illumination during every 12-hour rotation of the comet. Under the current circumstances, Philae may cease to operate beyond Saturday. Engineers are thinking of repositioning the probe to maximize the lander's exposure to sunlight. Regardless of what happens in the coming days, the mission's priority will be on collecting as much information as possible from the comet. Researchers hope to pull up some subsurface material for laboratory analysis. Scientists believe comets delivered water to planets and may hold some answers to the origins of life and the formation of the solar system. Philae has a Twitter account with all the latest images from the comet's surface. Users can check them out by following at Philae 2014. Jim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Let's now get a check on some of the other global headlines we're following this hour. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center.
Eunice, lots of developments on the Ebola front. First, vaccines are set to go under trial in the worst-hit areas, and also Liberia, one of the worst-hit countries, has called an end to its national state of emergency.
Right, Mark. Let's go ahead and begin with that latter development. Liberia's president announced on Thursday that she is lifting the state of emergency, citing improvements in the fight against Ebola. While noting that the fight against the deadly virus was not over, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf said the country had come a long way since August, when it became the outbreak's epicenter, and the government had determined there was enough progress to lift the emergency measure. Meanwhile, Doctors Without Borders has agreed to partner with researchers in Europe to test 2 experimental drugs and 1 convalescent plasma treatment at its clinics in West Africa. The trials will involve 400 people, with early results expected in February of next year. So far, there is no vaccine for the hemorrhagic virus that has now killed more than 5,100 people and infected more than 14,000, mostly in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. On the crisis in Ukraine, Moscow and Kiev are exchanging barbs that the other had violated a September ceasefire, as NATO accuses Russia of sending military equipment and troops into rebel-held eastern Ukraine. The Monitor Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, also known as the it said it spied a vehicle marked Cargo 200 among the clusters of Russian tanks, artillery, and air defense systems and entering Ukraine, and that is apparently a vehicle used to transport soldiers' bodies. The United Nations Security Council also convened its 26th emergency session on Ukraine on Thursday on concerns that full-scale fighting could break out in the country's east. The Ukraine's crisis is also expected to be among the top topics discussed at the G20 summit that kicks off in Australia on Saturday. U.S. President Barack Obama could be moving very soon on an immigration plan that would block the deportation of up to 5 million undocumented immigrants. Citing administration officials in the know, the New York Times reports the executive order could be announced as early as next week. It would protect some 3.3 million parents of U.S. citizens or legal residents who currently live in America illegally by allowing them legal work documents. Also, those with high-tech skills or those who came to the country as a child could be helped by the plan. The anticipated action would further grow the divide between the president and Republicans who have warned against a unilateral action on immigration. Now, the world governing body of football is at the center of attention once again over the highly questionable winning bids for the 2018 and 22 World Cups. As soon as a FIFA ethics report cleared Russia and Qatar of corruption allegations, the man behind the independent investigation labeled the report as false, while the chairman of the English Football Association called the entire situation a joke. Connie Lee breaks it down for us.
These latest developments are a farce, even by FIFA standards. The head of an independent investigation into alleged World Cup corruption says FIFA's summary of his report is flat out wrong. The report, published Thursday morning, cleared Russia and Qatar of any significant wrongdoings in their winning bids for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. Just hours after the report was published, Michael Garcia, the man who spent 2 years on the investigation, branded the report erroneous and said he would appeal to FIFA. The head of the English Football Association told reporters that he thinks the FIFA report is a joke.
It has made a bit of a mockery of the whole process. If the person who did the investigation says the report didn't reflect what he believed, I'm a bit shocked by it all. I think it's now pretty ugly for FIFA.
The FIFA report criticized England over its bid to host the 2018 World Cup, accusing it of disregarding the rules. The head of England's bid believes the entire ethics report could be questioned.
The process was flawed from the beginning in our view, and it didn't have the confidence that it should have done.
Russia won the right to host the 2018 Games, beating England. However, suspicions have been piqued ever since Qatar, the 2022 World Cup host, was accused of paying bribes to FIFA officials in return for winning the hosting rights. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on Newsline at noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about.
The UN envoy on North Korean human rights has once again called on referring the regime's leader to the International Criminal Court. Now, this comes as the UN General Assembly is expected to vote on a resolution on the rights situation in the North next month. Hwang Seung-hee has more.
UN Special Rapporteur on North Korean human rights Marzuki Darusman reiterated that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un should be taken to the International Criminal Court for his serious human rights violations.
It's only now that we are now in a position to, in fact, direct culpability on the supreme leader for these massive human rights violations.
At a forum in Seoul on Thursday, the UN envoy said the report published by the Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea pointed unequivocally to the North Korean leadership for being responsible for the inhumane treatment of its 25 million population. Noting Pyongyang's recent invitation to Darusman, U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues Robert King said the report is effective in slowly changing the North.
He's been denied visits to North Korea for 4.5 years. The North Koreans indicate that they're willing to invite him to Pyongyang as long as the text of the resolution is modified. I think these are all very clear indications of North Korean concerns about the focus on their human rights record.
As the UN General Assembly prepares to vote on the human rights resolution in mid-December, the two human rights figures agreed on adding more pressure on the regime. Both Darusman and King agreed that the next crucial step would be to link the North Korean human rights issue with security dimensions by listing it in the agenda of the UN Security Council. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
We saw a thin layer of yellow dust covering the nation yesterday, originating from China, and unfortunately the density of these fine dust particles has been increasing in recent years. So to tackle the regional problem, Korea, China, and Japan have decided to jointly strengthen measures on the matter. Heads of the three nations' environmental research institutes are meeting in Japan, where they saw eye to eye on the need to come up with a new means to control yellow dust and general air pollution. During the 5-day meeting, which will come to an end on Saturday, Korea has also shared its policies on bird flu and environmental radioactivity. Representatives from the three countries will meet again next November, this time in Korea's southern city of Yeosu. Now, shifting gears to a bleak projection about China's future growth, a U.S. research institute, the Conference Board, predicts China's annual growth will tumble to the 3% range in just 5 years from now. At a press conference in New York on Thursday, the institute said it expects the Chinese economy to experience a soft fall over the next decade. Unlike a soft landing, which means economic stabilization after a recession, soft fall means China's economic momentum will continue to deteriorate due to its transition from an export-driven to a more domestically focused economy. It says China's economic growth will begin to slow from next year, falling to 6.5% next year from this year's 7% plus growth rate.
Korea's cosmetics market is growing in line with the popularity of the Korean wave. Statistics Korea says cosmetics sales have grown to more than $3.6 billion in the third quarter of this year. That's an increase of more than 10% from the same period last year. Experts say the sales surge can largely be attributed to Chinese buyers, with the popularity of Korean dramas leading to a greater interest in Korean makeup products. Analysts say, however, that Korean consumers are spending less money on cosmetics and seeking more affordable but still high-quality products. The Korean cosmetics market is expected to reach $14.6 billion this year. Now, the world has a new number one in terms of brand value, at least. Germany has overtaken the United States to become the best national brand. According to German market research firm GfK, Germany scored the highest on the Nation Brands Index, driven by its victory at the 2014 World Cup finals in Brazil. The United States now sits in second place after having stayed at the top spot every year since 2009. That's followed in third by Britain and France in fourth. The index measures the brand image of 50 countries in 6 different categories, including exports, culture and tourism. More than 20,000 people in 20 countries were polled for this year's survey. In case you're wondering where Korea placed on the list, it came in 27th. Now, Korea's largest art fair, devoted to introducing limited edition artwork, opened in the Korean capital on Thursday, and the art comes from far and wide and is not only limited to works by Korean artists, as the name may suggest. Our Park Geun-hye took a look around for us and filed this report.
Ranging from photos and woodcut prints to 3D computer artwork, this fair is all about art pieces that have a limited number of editions. Since 1995, the annual International Art Fair has invited a number of participants and guests from all over the world. This year's includes 51 galleries from 15 countries. Those who visit will get close access to the artists themselves at exhibit booths.
My works are about the endless networks of our lives that interconnect everyone. It looks like a plant, as plants represent the circles of life, from its creation to extinction.
In this project, I did a performance in a site near the Auschwitz camp where people were shot. And I asked the audience, there were about 300 people, I asked them to write down the names of the people they love and put them in candles, and the candles went down the river to the ocean. So it became this kind of celebration of life.
On the sidelines of the festival, diverse programs are being offered, from artist talks and collaborative projects to printmaking classes. The festival continues until this Sunday at the Hangaram Art Museum of Seoul Arts Center. 박지원, Arirang News.
Seoul and Incheon had their first snow of the season in the very early hours of the morning, and that's about 4 days earlier than last year. And the capital area woke up to the sub-zero temperatures of -1. And if you have noticed, the air is much cleaner today and fresher than yesterday, and the winds have died down. Also, plenty of sunshine will shine down on us throughout the day, sending temperatures into double digits as the daytime high in the capital will peak at 10, while Daegu tops out at 11, and Gwangju and Busan will climb to 12. And for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will get up to 13 and 10 respectively, while Dokdo should see a high of 8. That's all for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Jian. And this is where we say goodbye on this Friday afternoon.
Certainly is. Enjoy your weekend. Jin-joo and I will be back at the same time on Monday.
Thank you for watching.